welcome back to another episode of our podcast Historia, where our topic today is the fall of Constantinople, which is a very important historical event that determined the end of the Middle Ages.
To know more deeply about the subject, we call the historians Gabriel and Gabriela, experts from the FIC University, to answer some questions about the subject.
So, in summary, the fall of Constantinople, also known as the conquest of Constantinople, was the capture of the capital of the Byzantine Empire, Constantinople, by the Ottoman Empire. It happened in the year 1453, and it is a very important event for the history of the world because it marked the end of the Middle Ages, which started in 476. But let's get the experts to answer some questions. Gabriel, what was the context of that event?
Hello, I'm glad to be here and have been invited to this podcast and the opportunity to talk about what I love. So in summary, the Byzantine Empire, at the time Eastern Roman Empire, had been a powerful force in Europe for centuries at this point. But the problem was that their prime had passed. For several years they had been at odds with other empires and have been weakened. For example, the Mongols invaded, the Persians invaded, the Turkics invaded, and numerous empires had weakened them to the point where they could barely be considered an empire. But because of the prestige that came from Rome, they were still considered one.
And what was the Byzantine Empire? Why wasn't it a part of the Roman Empire? Can you answer us, Gabriela?
Hello, dear listeners. Firstly, I would like to say that I'm really glad to be here and I really appreciate Laura's and Cecilia's invitation for me to come here and talk a bit about history. So, the Byzantine Empire, also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, was an empire originating from the division of the Roman Empire. It is known for surviving the fragmentation and collapse of the Western Roman Empire, and yet thriving, lasting more than a millennium. Well, the reason the Byzantine Empire was not part of the Roman Empire was because the Emperor Diocletian divided the imperial administration into two halves. Under the command of Theodosius I, Christianity became the official religion of the empire, and after his death, the Roman state was definitely divided into two halves, each controlled by one of his sons.
And what were some of the factors that started the conflict?
So at this point, as I had already said, the Byzantine Empire was a mere shell of its former self and also the former Roman Empire. And the Ottomans knew that the Ottomans had been a rising empire at this point. They were very much set to be one of the great powers of Europe, but they knew that specifically Constantinople was important. One, for the factor of prestige. It was certainly just considered the Rome of the East, the great city, and everything, the heart of the Roman Empire for years at this point. And also it was a divided city into Europe and Asia, and had a little river that went through it that connected the Mediterranean Sea, one of the most important seas in Europe, to the Black Sea. And the Ottomans knew that not only would that conquering that city would be important for trade, because trade between Asia and Europe was booming at the point, and also would make Genoa and Venice, two trading Italian cities, their rivals to the Ottomans, weakened because they wouldn't have access to their colonies in the Black Sea.
Well, and what strategies did the Ottoman Empire use in battle?
Like the Constantinople was surrounded by large walls that served as a barrier so that enemies would not enter there. With this in mind, the Ottoman Empire used around 69 gunpowder-powered cannons to destroy the enormous walls of Constantinople.
How did the conflict end?
So it ended after the Ottoman siege of Constantinople was successful, and even though the city had large amounts of defenses, the Ottoman Empire using massive cannonballs that weighed 500 kilograms and or like across 1.5 kilometers breached the defenses, and their forces and armies could enter Constantinople and kill the emperor in battle.
Okay, so one last question. What are the impacts that this conflict caused? Does it somehow affect our world today?
The fall of Constantinople caused the end of the Roman Empire. In addition, its conquest also dealt a severe blow the defense of Christian continental Europe, as the Ottoman Muslim armies were left with no obstacles to advance across the European continent. However, if we think about its impact today, we cannot say that it affects anything specially because the fall of Constantinople. For us, it only marked the beginning of what we know as the modern age.
Okay, so in a nutshell, Constantinople was part of the Byzantine Empire, one of the most prosperous empires of the Middle Ages. Because of this, hordes of barbarians tried to cross its walls, which added to the impacts of many crusades, fragilized the city. Using this fact as an advantage, the leader of the Ottoman Empire, Mehmed II, invaded Constantinople with his troops in 1453. Later on, the city will be named Istanbul, and this was the beginning of the Modern Ages and end of the Middle Ages.
That's it. Thank you guys for coming here to our podcast, and thank you all for listening to the newest episode of History, The Fall of Constantinople.